Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of Rotten Reviews. On this episode, I take a look at the 1995 film Congo. It has a 22% on the tomato meter and a 29% on the audience score. And wow, does it deserve it. I mean, wow, this thing is rotten. It is on the very cusp of being one of those so bad it's good movies. It is on the very cusp of being a parody. And in fact, there are several parts of this that I laughed out loud, just several parts, like two, three, four parts. But this thing is like almost 2 hours long, and most of it isn't like that. It is just such, one of those films that's just riding the line. It could become a cult classic at some point. It's just not quite there, but it is fun to watch this just to see how rotten it really is. It is so putrid and rotten. It has every flaw you can imagine. It has plot holes up the wazoo. It has a ridiculous premise. It has bad acting. It has comical, bad costuming. It has total ridiculousness going on, and it expects you to take almost all of it completely serious. Congo, from a novel by Michael Crichton. And you would think, are you dealing with a Jurassic Park here? Nope, this is like the worst thing that you could imagine compared to Jurassic Park. It is really bad. It has to be the worst movie of 1995. I was 25 in 1995. I don't recall. In fact, I don't recall much about Congo at the time. I know I tried to watch it once on VHS and I didn't get through it. And I think I was at a friend's house and we had been drinking, and this was a new rental on a Tuesday afternoon. And we had popped this in, and we were so hammered that we had forgotten about Congo and moved on to something else because we were hammered. I do remember that, but if I had known just how funny this would be to do a rotten review on, I would have put this right near the top of my list. But here we are, and Congo 1995, I can only imagine if this should have won Razzies all the way up and down, because it is so just rotten. And I don't know if I'd even be, as an actor, embarrassed to say that I was a part of it, because you might just laugh and tell people it was a comedy. It's that bad. I actually had to assemble a list, a handwritten list of all the stuff wrong with it, because I was starting to lose track. So I've written that down in a notebook, and I'm going to be looking down at that from time to time, I think. Unless I find audience reviews that remind me of things that I didn't even think of, and I might. Let's just say the premise itself is really bad, but in a nutshell, if you don't know, Congo is about a woman, a scientist that works for some nebulous corporation that needs to find this rare type of diamond that's going to fuel a communication satellite, some kind of futuristic technology that this corporation needs, this special diamond that can only be found in the Congo to fuel this, this revolution in satellite communications. Yeah, it's kind of weird to describe that, but that's what's going on. At the same time, there's another type of university professor, young university professor, who has trained a gorilla to communicate to humans via sign language by some kind of suit or glove that it wears, and it can use its arm to make sign language, and then a speaker comes out of its backpack apparatus and it can speak to people through this, and it's completely ridiculous. Let's just break this down. The premise itself is bad because this diamond is so needed for this breakthrough in communications, and yet why didn't they just manufacture the diamond? This has been a thing for a long time. Industrial diamonds can be manufactured. It's done every day. It's done in quantity. It's not that expensive. Yet for some reason in this story, only the Congo, this remote region of the Congo, has this diamond. Now, how this company knows that this diamond can only be found in this remote region of the Congo, it's never explained in the movie. Maybe it's explained in Crichton's book, but it isn't explained in the movie, so you're just like trying to hand wave that away. Okay, let's just hand wave that away and say that they need to go to some weird remote part of the Congo to find this diamond. So the company sends this research team, and lo and behold, Who is the head of this research team? Ah, a very young and trim Bruce Campbell. Yes, Bruce Campbell, who's known for the Evil Dead movies and TV show. So right off the bat, he's a comedy character, and his big scene in the movie is to scream out in pain as some unknown thing off screen kills him in the Congo, and it's almost a comedy right there in that scene, and I almost felt like laughing there, but it gets so much more funnier and absurd. Now, this I don't know, young professor from the university that's taught the gorilla sign language and this scientist that works for this corporation end up being stuck together on a flight to the Congo. And it's kind of like very strange the way they're just kind of shoehorned together on this adventure, but they are. And they go off to this remote version of the Congo or version of Africa that's obviously shot in Hawaii, which a lot of stuff in African settings in Hollywood is shot in Hawaii. And they go off to this remote region of the Congo to have their adventure to, look for this strange diamond in these ancient ruins. And along the way is a character with a really bad Romanian accent played by Tim Curry. Very laughably bad. It's almost laugh out loud funny when you see Tim Curry show up and start spouting off with this Romanian, really bad, cheesy Romanian accent. It sounds like he's from Transylvania or something, and it should be in a comedy. And he's like this nefarious, greedy scientist type or researcher. It's not really stated which. And he's along for the ride now to find this mythical city of Zin or Zinth or Zinj or something like that, that's also in the same location that this diamond is supposedly to be found. And he thinks there's going to be a mountain of diamonds to be found, and he'll be fantastically rich, and they'll all be rich together. So you have this treasure hunter character from Romania, a young university professor that's taught a gorilla how to speak through sign language, and a kind of generic lady scientist from a faceless corporation. They're all shoehorned together on this adventure to Congo. It's quite preposterous, and it becomes laugh out loud funny when in fact this costumed gorilla character is put on board a small aircraft and strapped into a seat and buckled up. And the first thing that the young university professor guy does, that's trained this ape so well, is provides the ape with an actual martini. Yes, a martini in a martini glass with an olive on a toothpick. He gives it to the gorilla, who then the gorilla consumes it in front of everybody. And then when the other characters look at this in astonishment, the university professor says, well, of course it's a martini. It's the only thing that will calm her down. And so the gorilla, who's a female that goes by the name of Amy, needs a martini before she goes to bed. And I'm sorry, it sounds so crazy, yet this is all in the movie. And it's just preposterous how this gorilla, this actor, small actor, probably a child actor in a gorilla suit that portrays the gorilla just goes along with them, riding along in the plane and on different planes, and even parachuting out of a cargo plane with them at one point, embracing the professor character. It is so, I'm laughing out loud thinking about this. It's so ridiculous. And the gorilla doesn't even look good. It's not CGI. It's just flat out an actor or a child actor in a gorilla suit. It's really bad. And this movie kind of flashes between, it can't figure out what type of movie it wants to be. On one hand, it's an action adventure with all this serious stuff going on, and deaths and killings and whatnot, and soldiers and military coups and whatnot. And then it kind of alternates between high amounts of action danger and a gorilla love story, a family gorilla type love story movie, and goes back and forth, like literally back and forth between these two types of movies, literally as the camera goes back and forth between characters in scenes. It goes back and forth between these types of movies. And when I say that, I mean the actual background score in the film changes to match these two types of movies as the camera switches between different scenes in the movie. And so you have action, adventure, serious music that immediately cuts to Disney-esque, like gorilla family story movie time in the next camera shot, and then back to action, adventure, music, and drama in the next shot as the camera goes back to the other side of the setting. It is completely ridiculous. It's like a parody of itself, except it's just not quite there to be a complete laugh out loud film, a complete parody. It still wants you to take all of this completely seriously. It's just not boring enough to shut this off because it's got enough weird flaws in it that keep you watching just to see how bad it is. But it's not quite funny bad, it's just bad. And I made a list. Not to mention the obvious problem with the premise that this nameless company can just manufacture a diamond. They don't have to do all this crazy stuff to go to the Congo. But right off the bat, this head of this corporation, the CEO that sends the lady scientist off on this mission, his response to any kind of frustration is to like take a golf club and just smash computer monitors in his office. That's it. Like when there's a setback in the plot, instead of handling this the way a real world CEO would do, because real world CEOs have a lot of setbacks in their day to day business environment. That's why they're there. That's why they get paid the big bucks. No, his response to any kind of setback at all is to throw a temper tantrum and smash expensive equipment with his golf club, which I don't know why he would have a golf club in his office in this, computer lab or satellite communications room that he's in. I don't know why he'd have a golf club in there to begin with, but he does, and he just smashes equipment with it when he gets frustrated, and it's so ridiculous. Anyway, so I've written that down. Um, that is the one of the funny parts, by the way. The CEO, the actor that plays him, is so ridiculously bad. I'll even scroll down to show you who that is. Let me see, who is that? That would be well, wow, we don't have pictures for everybody. There's a surprising number of people in this 1995 film that you will see in other much better movies, and you see them even today. Dylan Walsh plays the guy that trained the monkey or the gorilla with sign language. Laura Linney, we've seen her in movies even in 2019 and good ones. She plays the lady scientist. Ernie Hudson, yes, the Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters. He plays a serious character, like a ex-military, ex-CIA type character who's leading these adventurers on their quest into the Congo. He's also, keep in mind, this is an ex-like military CIA type guy who demonstrates that he doesn't know how to read maps or understand how to do compass directions. That's another problem with this movie. Tim Curry, of course, Grant Heslov, Joe Don Baker, and I believe it's Joe Don Baker that's actually playing, that may actually be playing the scientist, or I mean maybe playing the CEO. It's hard to tell because some of these, these actor photos are very much out of date. But I think it is Joe Don Baker that plays, he's an older Joe Don Baker that plays the CEO that likes to throw temper tantrums. That's his claim to his performance in this movie. Bruce Campbell, he's just in the first 10 minutes of the opening scene, and he's killed off in a comedic fashion, and that's the proper role. He's actually in his proper element. Bruce Campbell is in his proper role in this film, but this should have been a comedy, and it's not. Yeah, you see a lot of people that we see in much bigger things in the future after 1995. But in any case, let's get into audience reviews, and I'll go along and follow along with my list, hopefully, with what other people say. We have one from November 29th, 2019, 1 star, bad, really bad. Can was considering it was, well, yeah, 5 stars, an absolute classic. Spoiler, the end of the movie consists of gorillas armed with lasers battling humans with guns whilst a volcanic eruption consumes the world around them. I mean, that's entertainment. Actually, they're wrong on that. I was going to get to that. They're kind of confused, but they might have been drinking while they watched this, but they're not too far off, believe it or not. In fact, the big climactic scene of this movie features the lady scientist using a scientific apparatus which is supposed to be a communications device, but when you plug one of these Congo flawless diamonds into it, which they find in this remote region of the Congo, it becomes basically a portable laser weapon, and she uses that to kill these gray silver mutated gorillas that are battling against them, and she decapitates them and cuts them in half with this laser. And yes, that is accurate. She is battling these mutated gorillas with a laser weapon. And also, it's funny how, to get on that same scene at the end, this lady scientist turns into a Rambo type figure, firing machine guns like Rambo and using a laser weapon to fight the gorillas. And everybody else in the movie, no matter what their actual job title is in the rest of the film, they turn into Rambo like characters, spraying bullets from Uzis and every other type of weapon and dashing around fighting these mutated gorillas, while lava's flowing out of a volcano, mind you, at the same time. It's really over the top, but this guy isn't too far off in this review. Let's continue on. 2 stars, November 25th, 2019. The only reason I didn't give this 1 star is because Tim Curry is in it. Otherwise, it deserves 1 star. Yeah, Tim Curry's in it, and, he borderline plays comedic roles. He's like the original Pennywise clown in the first TV movie of It, and that's borderline comedy, and he does borderline comedy character here. Not enough to make you just laugh all the time, but he belongs in a comedy with his performance. His Romanian accent is so bad it like borders on some cheesy Dracula spoof Transylvania type accent. It's really bad. 3.5 stars. Achieve the goal of embarking on a pulp adventure with attractive set pieces of amusing quality, nostalgic practical costuming that dates to certain 1968 usages, and fun performances from the cast, particularly Ernie Hudson outfitting the occasional image role for any actor to wildly loosen up for a jungle expedition, to make this a typically engaging, well-equipped ride of a campy, lackluster B. Wow, that's a lot of words. I don't know if they're doing a parody, a sarcastic review, or they're serious. I hope they're not serious, because this is a whole lot of nonsensical wordage here to describe a B movie. This is B movie with a big time budget from 1995, so I'll agree there. If I have to give it a star rating, I'm going to say it's like 1 star, because I laughed a lot at different parts of it. I know it wasn't intentional, it wasn't supposed to make me laugh, but I did, so that's why I'm not giving it half a star. Otherwise it'd be half, but I'm giving it 1 because I cracked a laugh a few places in this. 3 stars. It was an enjoyable watch, and I can't say that I'll never come back to watch Congo. It doesn't take itself seriously, and I'd compare its tone to that of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. It's far from great, but far from awful. To some, they'd rather just watch an Indiana Jones flick, but if you want a silly adventure to watch, this is a good option. Plus, it's got Tim Curry as Herkimer Homoka. Stop eating my sesame cake. Yeah, there's a scene in which Tim Curry's character and the others are kind of taken prisoner by an African warlord that's in the middle of a coup in this country. That's the Congo. It's either the Congo or it's either the Congo or it's Tanzania, and this movie plays really fast and loose with African countries and the geology, and so at one point they're in Tanzania, at one point they're in Congo, and etc. Don't take that seriously. But in any case, they're a prisoner of this character, and at one point he makes a big deal about Tim Curry eating his, I guess they're sesame cake slices or whatever, and it's really cheesy and bad like a lot of the rest of the movie, and you may or may not laugh out loud during that. It's completely stupid, and I actually have that on my list. It's part of a plot hole too. They're taken prisoner by these African soldiers, these half-ass African soldiers. It's ridiculous, but in any case, they're taken prisoner by them, and they bribe the leader of these African soldiers to let them pass through and into the Congo. It's really bad because, in the real world, if they saw you carrying a duffel bag, they're just taking stacks of $10,000 stacks of crisp $100 bills out of a duffel bag and handing it one at a time to this African military commander until he agrees that it's enough for him to take the bribe. In the real world, of course, he would just see that duffel bag, kill all of them, and just take the duffel bag for himself. It makes absolutely no sense how he's willing to just sit there and let them slide stacks of money over to him out of this duffel bag until he thinks it's enough. It's almost like it wants to be a comedy, but it's not. It's playing it completely serious, and it wants it to be serious, and it's laughable in that scene. big giant plot hole or laughable or parody. I don't know what you consider it because it's all of those. 1 star, released for no other reason than to cash in on the success of Jurassic Park. This movie was based off a Michael Crichton bestseller after all. While there's a likable gorilla and Bruce Campbell makes the most out of his disappointingly minimal screen time, Congo is full of uneven acting, unconvincing apes. Is this how far we've come since Planet of the Apes? Yes, I'll agree. Uh, and a suspenseless adventure that doesn't bother pretending to be. Yeah, you don't know if they really wanted this to be a parody or not. It's like they couldn't make up their mind. Some of it looks like, with the design of the gorilla in the gorilla suit, that they wanted it to be funny, and then at other times they didn't want it to be funny. It can't make up its mind. You laugh out loud several times, but not enough to just say it's so bad it's good. It's very schizophrenic like that. 3.5 stars. Decent jungle adventure film is a bit hit and miss, but there's enough to keep you interested until the end. There's enough weirdness and flaws and stupidity to keep you watching. I'll give it that. Let's just go by my list here. Yeah. Let's see. No one has a problem with the gorilla in the plane drinking a martini. We went over that. Yeah, there's a ridiculous scene at the airport when they land at the airport in Africa, which I believe it's actually supposed to be Tanzania, not Congo. They arrive in Tanzania at the airport and they get off this plane, and right as they're getting off the plane, a coup is broken out and there are soldiers and explosions going around the airport, and a vehicle is blown up nearby. And you can see the soldiers, these African soldiers in their outfits and their rifles, running around in almost a football play type pattern around the grounds of the airport, around the tarmac, simply to make it look like they're doing something. But you can clearly see that they've just been told to run in these patterns around the airport, and it comes off like something from out of a, like Hot Shots, the Top Gun spoof or something. These military soldiers running around, and it's obviously fake what they're doing. They're just meant to run around looking busy, and they're just going back and forth in front of the camera, ridiculous fashion, like holding their rifles out in a menacing manner, and it's laugh out loud funny how bad it is. So yeah, that's off the top of my head, off of my list. Actually, I had to make a list because there was too much ridiculousness to fit inside my head. Let's go down here on some more reviews. 5 stars. Man, I don't care what anybody says. I love this movie. Must have watched it 200 times as a kid. Yeah, if you consider this a comedy, man, you're gonna laugh. If this type of comedy's up your alley, so to speak, it's nonstop laughs. You might actually watch it multiple times if you start laughing hard. But I didn't laugh enough. A couple of times, yes. Not enough to make this rewatchable like that. April 12th, 2019. 4 stars. Wow, people must hate talking gorillas because I rather enjoyed Amy and thought it was a neat idea, and she is cute. Perhaps a little bit chopped up in some pointless scenes, but it is a good movie and it entertains, which is the point of the film. Wow, it's hard for me to take that review serious unless they mean that in a comedy fashion. Amy was pure comedy. She's an actress or a child or somebody, a child-sized person in a gorilla suit. It's obvious that's what she is. And if you think this is serious, wow, I don't know what reality you're in, because I just laughed out loud at a lot of it. And we're supposed to sympathize with Amy. She wants to return to her native Congo, and that's part of the plot too. She ends up staying in the Congo to join her relatives. Never mind that gorillas in captivity are not captured from the Congo, but are in fact raised in the zoo in captivity. So returning them to the Congo would be a death sentence. But putting that aside, it was just comical. We're supposed to go along with this sad gorilla story too in the middle of all this, interspersed between serious action scenes. I took it as comedy. And another thing, let's bring up another flaw. You know, they're in a cargo plane, an old cargo plane that could be like 50 years old, and they're flying real low over the jungle towards Congo from somewhere in Tanzania. you have to kind of hand wave away the geography problems with that. But anyway, they fly into Congo in this low flying cargo plane, and at some point, somebody's flying or somebody is firing shoulder mounted SAMs at them, anti aircraft missiles, shoulder mounted of some type, maybe the Soviet style, I don't know. Anyway, you clearly see what they're firing at them. And at one point, the scientist lady and Ernie Hudson's character hang out the cargo bay door with a couple of flare guns and fire flares off into the air to, a sort of poor man's chaff system against these SAMs that are tracking the cargo plane. And it is laugh out loud funny and stupid. And it's something an 8-year-old would probably think was cool. As an adult, you just laugh at it. It's so bad and so funny at the same time. So I'm just bringing these tidbits up. Every time somebody tells me or you that they want you to take this serious, I'm going to counter with one of my tidbits that I've written down for this purpose. 4.5 stars. I love Congo. Forget you all. Okay. You love it. If you're saying it's funny, I would agree. Otherwise, I think you're out to lunch. November 24th, 2018. 3.5 stars, gets more flack than it deserves. A great adventure with a fantastic climax and some awesome 90s nostalgia. Dialogue can be wickedly bad at times, but hilarious. You know, the only 90s nostalgia here is the old 90s computer monitors and graphics that you see from 1995 that were at the time kind of like convincing in a high-tech way for 1995. But you have to remember, at one point in the movie, you have the scientist lady looking at this massive monitor out in the jungle, and anybody in the modern sense is wondering what's powering this massive computer CRT out in the middle of the jungle in the Congo. And on along those lines, let's ask about the rip-off of the Aliens movie that they put into Congo. At one point, these mutated gray gorillas are in these ruins and they're attacking them at night, and they suspect they might attack them at night. So they set up this system of this laser beam, this colorful blue system of laser beams around their camp to protect them, this perimeter. And these blue laser beams are tied in with some computer somehow to these portable automatic weapons that are basically taken from the movie Aliens. You know, the ones you see you see the Space Marines like Hicks in Aliens set these things up in the corridors in the space, in the space station on that planet, and they automatically track and fire at the aliens as they're coming into the camp. Well, they do the same thing in this movie, and the guerrillas are coming in from all sides, and these automatic machine guns with these laser sensors are blowing them away with, high speed. I don't even know what it looks like. Aircraft, anti-aircraft guns, that style of gun mounted on some kind of automatic swivel mechanism on a tripod. And it's just like out of the movie Aliens, and they're like operating in the jungle in the Congo with what electricity, I don't know, and where the ammunition is coming from, I have no idea, because they're firing hundreds of rounds of bullets out into the forest without running out of ammo, and they're swiveling around as these blue laser beams are detecting the guerrillas. It would be funny, but it's so shamelessly ripped off from Aliens, and I'll just drop that tidbit in there. Let's see, 4 stars from September 8th of 2018. Never read the book. I always liked this film. Something about it I quite enjoy. The love between Elliot and his gorilla was always quite heartwarming. Feels like a movie trying to get the gorilla back to its own kind, but somehow they stumble into these killer gorillas and Mother Nature of Congo. The end sees a pretty cool action finale. The end left me satisfied. Music also enjoyed. Wow, let's unpack that. Yeah, you've got a bunch of different things going on here. Like I said, you have the story about the corporate employee, the scientist lady from the corporation. She wants to find this, special diamond. At the same time, this guy with his talking gorilla, he wants to return her. His story is actually, he wants to take the sign language gorilla to the Congo so that she can explain to him why she's actually painting paintings of these ruins in the Congo. And yes, I said that correctly. I forgot to mention it earlier. The gorilla not only communicates through sign language, but he has taught her how to paint, do oil paintings. Or maybe it's watercolor paintings. It could be watercolor paintings. the type you put up on an easel and you paint with a paintbrush. That's what the gorilla does in its free time, and it has dreams where it sees scenes out of the Congo of these ancient ruins, and it's painting these things on watercolor canvas paintings. And yeah, that's why this professor wants to bring her there, because he thinks he'll solve the mystery of why she's painting paintings from the Congo. Yeah. And at the same time, Ernie Hudson's character is working for the CIA or the government to get them into this area because the corporation is paying him. And at the same time, the scientist lady, she has brought along in her luggage all these high-tech weapons and stuff like out of the movie Aliens. And at the same time, Tim Curry's Romanian character, he's a treasure hunter and a greedy treasure hunter. He's come along to try to scoop up the diamonds for himself. It's good. It's a hodgepodge of all kinds of weird stuff going on here. But let's continue. 4 stars. Never read the book. I read that one. And, I'll just say, if the book is anything like the movie, the book should be ashamed of itself. And I forgot to unpack one more thing. There is like the love story thing. The gorilla's trying to get back to its own kind, and it's in the middle of all this other stuff, and the gorilla ends up wanting to stay with its own kind, and it's so sad, and there's sad music playing as the gorilla says goodbye to the professor. Anyway, let's move on. 1 star, May 31st, 2018. They say the book is usually better than the movie. I haven't read the novel, but I'm certain this trope is true here, as there's no way the book could have been worse. Yeah, I've seen the book on the stands, and I saw it back in the day in the supermarket. I don't think the book's quite thick enough to give you all this craziness inside of it. So, yeah, a lot of this has to be stuff that was added in for the movie. There's just way too much stuff going on here, never mind how ridiculous it is. 4 stars. As enjoyable as a delicious sesame cake. Yeah, another reference to African cliched rebel commander who's really concerned about his sesame cakes. 2 stars. Here is the other end of watching a film I thought was great as a kid and then rewatching again now, and wow, I never knew how bad this film was. I'd skip this film, just read the book. It's bound to be much better. Yeah, but as an adult, you can't find laugh-out-loud humor in this. I certainly can, but it is bad. 3 stars. Pretty decent jungle adventure flick. Good popcorn quality fun, high budget sets, and top quality special effects for the mid-90s. Some basic humor and mild violence, nothing too over the top. The soundtrack's not bad, acting is on par, not much to complain about, just not anything spectacular. They could have ramped up the drama a bit more just to give it some tension, suspense, but otherwise it satisfies just fine. Just good, straightforward, almost pulp action and atmosphere with a sense of wonderment. Well, let me tell you about your wonderment. There's a big, long, drawn-out scene of them using rubber rafts to raft down the rapids of what I guess they're trying to tell us is the Congo River. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but there's a river with rapids, and they use rafts at one point in their journey into the Congo. And, there's this high tension scene at night that's supposed to be scary and thrilling. And you know what it is? It's a hippopotamus that attacks them in their rafts that they easily fire machine guns at to make it go away. And that was your big, intense scare scene at night on the river. Just a big animatronic hippopotamus that attacks them. It's almost laugh out loud funny. If the hippopotamus were shown a little bit more and we could laugh at the prop and the cheesiness of it a little bit more, it would have been funny, but I didn't get an actual laugh out that. But that's out of that. But that's your your ramped up drama and tension there on that river. So I'll counter this review, that wordy review, with that. 1.5 stars. The book was much better than the garbage movie. Probably 4 stars. The reason this gets a good rating is that it finally depicts the way I always imagined primates to be: pure rage incarnate and utterly insane animals. Plus, I'm almost certain this is the only movie where humans win against a bunch of apes, which I find to be accurate. I'm not willing to look up if that's true or not, nor will I care. It's an old movie, and the only reason it won't get 5 stars is because this movie was pure garbage. That's kind of a weird review. He's saying it's 4 stars because of the rage of the of the gorillas. The gorillas, I don't know, they're like mutated weird gorillas that they didn't have a lot of money to spend on showing how they were mutated. They kind of gloss over the mutated part and just make them really gray. And they're actors in gorilla suits too. And they attack everybody at the end. It's not known why they attack. It's shown that like some ancient society has bred them to be enraged guardians of the diamond mines, I guess. Why the diamond mines would be a thing in ancient times, I don't know. They wouldn't be anything worth anything, but anything, it's one more ridiculous thing to this movie. The other ridiculous part is there's a volcano that, maybe it's been dormant for thousands or millions of years, but it just decides to start erupting when these characters get into the ruins and get at the base of it. All of a sudden, the volcano starts erupting, lava starts spewing down the sides of it, and conveniently, the lava is always just far enough away to always be conveniently safe for them when they need it to be. And then when they need the tension to go back up again and it to be exciting, conveniently the lava comes close to them again. And, it's almost like as bad as the volcano in Dante's Peak or the volcano in the movie Volcano. It conveniently like starts erupting and stops erupting and takes a break when the story needs it to. But never mind the fact that it was dormant for a million years and just decided to get all, belch out lava only now, after all these years, when the characters happen to be there at these ruins with all these diamonds to scoop up. It's completely ridiculous in a cartoonish way. And that the gorillas, of course, kill the greedy Romanian character played by Tim Curry. They rip him to pieces in a gory way because he was too greedy to want to scoop up all the diamonds, which are all these huge, perfect diamonds that are laying out just right there out in the open, as though the gorillas had mined all these diamonds out of the diamond mine and then just chucked them out on the ground to be scattered out all over a flat surface of ground for everybody to find. And the diamonds aren't like what you would really find as a diamond in the rock, where it's kind of hard to recognize by the layman. No, these are flat out polished, beautiful, large, golf ball sized diamonds that are just there to look like diamonds. It would be funny, except, it's a little bit too gory. Tim Curry's character gets ripped to pieces, but conveniently everybody else turns into Rambo and starts firing their machine guns, and the scientist lady starts firing her laser gun and decapitating the heads off of the gorillas. And the gorillas also conveniently leap into the lava because they're stupid. The lava flows come into that area, and the gorillas, they would chase the characters down, but when the characters need to escape from the gorillas, the lava is there, and the gorillas, instead of like going around the lava, just leap into the lava and burn themselves up. It is completely stupid. But let's move on. 2 stars. Before there was Andy Serkis, there was Amy the Cybo gorilla. Yet surprisingly, the prosthetically enhanced primate is not the most absurd, unbelievable character that's a toss-up between all the rest. Ex-CIA computer scientist Laura Linney, Ernie Hudson doing a Cary Grant impression. Yeah, it's like Ernie Hudson. Oh, it's almost like Ernie Hudson doing like a Humphrey Bogart African adventurer type impersonation. I think that's what they really mean. But anyway, Tim Curry playing a Romanian Tim Curry. It's like movie as a whole slipped on a banana peel. Yeah, it's like a movie that slipped on a banana peel but still took itself seriously. And just like the mutated gorillas like slipped on a banana peel and went right into the lava. Yeah, very appropriate metaphor. 2 stars, a ludicrous movie that doesn't quite make it to good bad and just stays bad right to the end. Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. I give it, a solid star just because I laughed a few times. 2 stars, awful script and exaggerated characters, bad pacing and droll humor throughout. One to watch whilst doing the ironing, cleaning, or power napping. I disagree actually, because to appreciate the badness, to the laugh out loudness parts of it, you've got to watch this. You do have to pay attention. If this were just on in the background, you wouldn't get the sense of just how awful this thing really was. 3 stars. This was good, creepy as a child, if you say so. 3.5 stars, November of 2016. While maybe not necessarily directed, cut that well, especially compared to Crichton's Jurassic Park. Yeah, it still represents another neat and cleverly thought out fictional journey. I personally thought the primates didn't look too fake to me whatsoever, as some other people have said. Some parts may have been a bit slow, but most of the overall structure of the film didn't seem to compromise the story too much. What movie are you watching? Everything you've said is a flat out lie, or you're talking about another movie. I don't know which. Let me consult my list to banish this. um, uh, yes, we have an African tribe in this movie that at one point, I think they kind of pose a threat. They at first pose a threat to the main characters, this African tribe that they stumbled upon in their journey. I have to breathe in to take this all in and not laugh. This African tribe looks like something made up in Hollywood, okay, but you can hand wave that away. But at one point, the females in this African tribe, they do that Middle Eastern yodeling sound that they do, you know, that you see Middle Eastern women do. They make that high-pitched tongue noise in their mouth that you can take as some kind of statement or wailing sound. And they do that, and yeah, that really belongs with an African tribe that's never been exposed to society. They're living in the Congo somewhere. They basically turn into Middle Easterners. It's completely ridiculous, and I did laugh at that at one point, seeing these African made-up tribe members do the Middle Eastern yodeling, screeching thing. Yeah, 2.5 stars. I haven't watched this in over 10 years. Acting not the best, with the exception of Ernie Hudson, but an okay movie overall if you're bored. And they spelled bored as in wooden plank. And I'll say that Ernie Hudson, he plays himself a little bit over the top, like he's not taking himself 100% seriously, and he's too clean, like a lot of the characters that have been sleeping rough out in the jungle for some time. Their uniforms and everything are freshly starched and clean, and their skin is all nice and clean. And yeah, it's Ernie Hudson, and he looks like he's always smoking a cigar, and a fresh cigar, and he's always, oh, by the way, he gives this cigar to Amy the gorilla at one point, and Amy the gorilla is now smoking the cigar like Ernie Hudson. And there's like a good length of time where Amy the gorilla is smoking a cigar next to Ernie Hudson smoking his cigar. And the movie plays that straight 100%. And I'm laughing out loud at that point, and nobody else is in the movie. Let's move on. 1 star, a sad attempt at ripping off Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones, but this time done with apes. You're giving it too much credit. 0.5 star. This confusing mess still makes me wonder what the hell this movie was supposed to be about. I agree. 2 stars. It wasn't very good. The overall plot didn't seem to make much sense, and the special effects were subpar. The gorillas were just people in suits, and it was very obvious. The only good thing about the movie was it had a great cast of actors, but even the acting wasn't good. Pass on this one. 0.5 star. An hour into this movie, you're still waiting on it to start. It's like watching someone's boring vacation video. 3.5 stars. Expedition team sets off to Africa to retrieve surveillance equipment in this visually weak but fast-paced summer popcorn flick. Wow, you're giving this a lot of credit. I'm going to have to read one of my problems off here. Let's see. I did the killer hippopotamus in the lake or the river. Oh, yeah. The laughable way that they get to this remote part of the Congo. Remember, this is like their fearless leader, played by Ernie Hudson, is CIA, ex-military. He knows what he's doing. He's contracted to take them into the Congo. He doesn't know how to read a map. At one point, he doesn't know to go left or right. Literally, he can't figure out whether to go left or whether to go right. That's what he says. and it's repeated by other characters. Now, that's not the most ridiculous part. The most ridiculous part is that at that same part in the movie, instead of they know they have to go to a location that's on the other side of this mountain, this gigantic volcanic looking mountain. Instead of like going around the mountain, which is what everybody else in the real world does when they're presented by a mountain, they go around it, which would be easy to do, especially considering that all the topography on the sides of this mountain is all considered lowland jungle. It's shown to the audience this way. No, they don't do that. They decide that the best way to get to the other side of this gigantically tall volcanic mountain is to climb straight over the top of that mountain. Yeah. And they don't have much difficulty doing this. In fact, they're carrying thousands of pounds of gear in these gigantic like cargo containers, these shipping containers. They're carrying thousands of pounds of that along with them. It's not shown how. And they just haul this all up the side of this gigantically steep mountain and down the other side. And they don't even break a sweat doing this. Okay, I'm going to move on that. 4.5 stars. Expedition team sets off to Africa. Oh, no, I read that one. Sorry. 4.5 stars. One of my favorite movies. It could be if you're laughing the entire time. 5 stars. I have no idea why this movie got bad reviews. This movie was awesome. That's from January 30th of 2016. Well, let's take a look at my handy list. There's steam and mist coming out of not only the jungle and the ground, which you see in Hollywood movies. You see a mist. Sometimes it's done better than others. You see a mist in the jungle. Sometimes it's in the air, sometimes rising out of the ground. It's an artistic thing. You put your fog machines and etc. In this movie, it shows steam and mist just literally shooting from what look like nozzles out of rock faces that they walk past in the jungle, and mist and steam, or a combination of both, coming from nozzles in the ground that's obvious, coming out of the ground around their feet as they walk, and a continuing like fine mist that you can obviously tell is coming from a sprinkler system that's just out of the frame of the camera over the top of them in this jungle, and it's too obvious. And it's really bad. The steam just jetting out of rocks is just weird. They walk through these rock tunnels into this area that's supposed to be a secluded ruin, some ancient civilization in the jungle. And when they go through the tunnel, it has to show Amy in the gorilla suit walking through the tunnel. And she looks like somebody in a gorilla suit slowly plodding through the tunnel just so that it can show the mist and steam swirling around her gorilla suit as she comes out. And it looks like some weird parody ripoff of Gorillas in the Mist. Not of the movie itself, but of the saying Gorillas in the Mist, and they're doing that to the gorilla as it comes out of the mist in the tunnel, and it's too obvious and on the nose, and it's like a spoof would do in a comedy or a spoof, but it's trying to give this to you in 100% seriousness. That's off my list, and it's in there. I highly encourage you to check it out, like everything else I'm telling you, because it's worth laughing about. Let's see, 1 star, October 8th, 2015. I'm guessing this shit slopper was made solely because of the success of Jurassic Park. Hollywood probably thought Michael Crichton books could do no wrong. Sadly, they were mistaken, as this movie is laughable on so many levels. It sucked in 1995 and it still sucks 20 years later. Just an awful movie. The book was good though, so I'd still recommend that. Yeah, okay, they obviously didn't find any humor with it, which is sad. I encourage people to watch this with an eye for humor, but, I'll agree with the 1 star. I'm just kind of disappointed that more of these reviewers aren't giving me more detail on why the book was better, or what the book had and didn't have versus the movie, because I don't want to, insult the book. I don't want to insult Michael Crichton's book if it was actually good, because I didn't read it. He's had great books. The Andromeda Strain is an all-time classic. That's what got him on the map as a writer. Not Jurassic Park, by the way. So, I don't want to say this is his responsibility. He's not with us anymore. So I'd like to hear more about the book, but we may not get to that. We may not have time. 4.5 stars. Holds up well, scary, and a fun adventure. Wow, you're taking this seriously, right? Okay, well, if you're a kid, but I'm thinking maybe you're not a kid. So let me see what I can find on my list. Ah, here we go. How about when the gorillas attack them in the ruins? And at one point, because they're obviously actors in gorilla costumes, it's not that scary. So to make it scary, they have the gorilla attack the actors, and then they use a shaky, blurry cam effect, a slow motion freeze frame blur effect when the gorilla is trying to, strike them with its claws, and then it jumps back and forth with this blurry freeze frame effect. And then, of course, the camera goes back to being a normal camera that we had before as soon as the gorilla is out of view, and that's supposed to be very scary. And then here comes the funny part, where the gorilla runs out around the corner and takes a severed head from one of the nondescript soldiers that have been traveling with our group through the jungle, and just throws this bloody head, this fake bloody head, at the actors, and it bounces off the floor and off into a recess behind the actors, and then the actors just all scream in horror, and then the gray mutated gorilla, the actor in the gorilla suit, runs off out of camera view again. So the gorilla was just there to jump back and forth in front of the camera while the camera went into a blurry shaky cam mode, and then the gorilla like threw a bloody human head at them and ran off. And that was funny. That got a laugh out of me, and that's one of the laugh out loud parts. And I encourage you to watch it for those moments, those special moments. It definitely wasn't scary, so that's why I just dropped that there. September 12th, 2015, three big stars. There is something weird, screwed up, and interesting about this film. It's mainly because it's the style of film that can't be made anymore. A massive blockbuster film with huge sets, but without CGI, with overtones of racism and bizarre stunts, including an entire species of gorilla being violently made extinct with a giant ad hoc laser rifle by the main characters. It's preposterous in all the right ways, although by the end you're truly wondering what exactly the point was. I guess don't like diamonds. Yeah, I'll agree with that. If there's any message to be taken away from this, it's that if you're if you're of the opinion that it's your right to go into some remote area and just scoop up diamonds for yourself, even if they're just laying there on the ground and nobody's using them for anything, you're evil and deserve to be killed. I guess that's the only message, because they show that at the end of the film. These characters escape, and I'm going to get to how they escape. These characters escape into the sunset, so to speak, and they take the most valuable possession that anybody would ever have in their hand, this perfect, flawless diamond, this huge diamond that they got out of this remote area of the Congo, and instead of like keeping that for themselves, they just nonchalantly chuck it away. And it's supposed to be some moral lesson. And the other two, the scientist lady's the one that chucks it away after she pulls it out of her laser gun. And that's the diamond that the evil corporation, I guess, was trying to get for the satellite. She chucks that away, and then the other two characters with her, they kind of just like smile and shrug their shoulders, and we're supposed to get the message that that was the right thing to do. In the real world, the right thing to do is like to get something for all your trouble, and there's no way you'd be chucking it away. But in any case, it was supposed to be the right thing to do, and I guess the message is, yes, it's just greedy to want diamonds. They belong to the earth, so chuck them away or be killed. Yeah, that's pretty much it, believe it or not. There wasn't a lot of CGI. Yeah, there wasn't, because I don't think they had the budget, or this was all practical effects, and I think the practical effects, like the severed human head getting thrown at the characters, that was actually funny, and it wouldn't have worked if it was CGI. It would have been just bad. But I think the practical effects with the gore actually like pumped up the volume a little on the humor, and I really liked that. Okay, I'll take that back. The laser rifle, that was a post-production effect. The laser beam from the laser pistol, but that's about it. And okay, maybe the lava. This movie featured gratuitous lava flow, like out of the movie Volcano or something, and that would be a post-production effect. But otherwise, yeah, no traditional CGI from what we know of in 2019. Half a star. I'm only halfway done the book, and Michael Crichton makes the gorillas more realistic than the costumes do in this film. I would imagine so, because gorillas can be in your mind in the book, not in a costume in the movie. It's tough. We've seen gorillas in the zoo. We know what they actually look like. So it's kind of hard to make a human in a costume look good. But I'll agree CGI can be done really well. Look at the new Planet of the Apes movies. Wow, they look real. This is just 1960s gorillas and actors in gorilla suits in this movie. Half a star. We read that one. 2 stars. It has its charms. It has some great dry, albeit awkward humor. For the most part, it's clumsily written with half-assed performances and bad gorilla costumes. Yeah, and it's funny. 2 stars. Laden with too much action and too little of the actual things that make Michael Crichton's scripts interesting. Congo is watchable, albeit just barely. It's only watchable to laugh at how bad it is. 2 stars. Not sure what the fuzz was all about at that time. The fuzz? Not sure either. I don't know what they mean. Maybe they mean fuzz off the gorilla suits or something. That could be. 3 stars. A good plot and quite suspenseful. But seeing Tim Curry attempting a language was laughable. Yeah, his Romanian accent was laugh out loud funny, and he had to know it was. I'm suspecting that they told some of the actors that they were actually in an action comedy, even though this is supposed to be everything but a comedy. And they probably didn't even know until the finished product came out and they watched it and said, uh-oh. I thought that was a comedy I was in. I think that's what happened. 1.5 stars. The action doesn't work, which makes it in perfect lockstep with a crappy script. Yeah, 5 stars. I just rewatched this and I'll admit it was a lot cheesier than I remembered, but it was still exciting and also made me laugh. I recommend. For the laugh part, yeah, I recommend, but they said 5 stars and I'm going to have to find a reason why not. So let's check my handy list here. Yeah, the gorillas leapt into the lava. I got to how they escaped. Well, somewhere at one point in the movie towards the end, another plane crashed into the jungle, a plane very similar to their cargo plane that they used to get into the Congo. I don't know. It's explained that the evil corporation thought that they had died in the Congo. So the boss of the CEO character, he ordered another mission to get the diamonds. So that plane came in and they witnessed it crash in the jungle. And then later on, they find in the cargo of that crashed plane that the CEO had conveniently placed a hot air balloon with basket and all the stuff to go with it into that cargo plane so that they would have a way to escape the Congo. It's very strange. So at the end of the movie, it just turns into like the Disney or whatever that the Pixar movie Up, where they're all of a sudden they're in a hot air balloon. They're in the basket of a hot air balloon, making their escape into the sunset. The hot air balloon was stored in this crashed cargo plane that followed them, and it was just put there basically so they would have a convenient way to go off into the sunset. It's very strange, cartoonish, and I almost laughed out loud at what happened, but they didn't have any funny line to go with it when they just took it serious that they just got into this hot air balloon and left the scene. Yeah, there was no laugh to be found there, so it's just bad and it's just rotten. Let's move on. 3 stars. It's funny to see films like this that seems too bad, but at least you get to see a lot of animals. I seem to enjoy it because it's so bad. Then again, who knows? Maybe the book is not good to be made into a movie. So they're saying that maybe the book wasn't, suitable to be made into a movie, and that's why this turned out bad. This is a review from December of 2014. I think they're really stretching here. This sounds like a little kid. No, the book couldn't possibly have had half of the stuff that's in this movie. The book had to have been totally different. 3 stars. A cornball good time, and Tim Curry's in it. I'll agree with that. Up to the 1-star level. 1 star. The Search for King Solomon's Mines, a sign language fluent gorilla, and Laura Linney saving the day with a laser gun. Just don't see it. That's pretty accurate, but I would say actually watch this because you'll laugh, and that's why you should get the 1 star. Otherwise, it isn't even 1 star. 3.5 stars. I liked this adventure film based on a Michael Crichton novel. There is plenty to gripe about, especially the poorly done apes, but the story is gripping and sentimental. The acting is decent, though the dialogue is unnatural in places, and the innocently gorgeous Laura Linney takes a lead role. You could do much worse than this. Okay, wow, I'm going to have to dispute this one. the sentimentality is kind of fake and cheesy. They're expecting you, they literally have a scene in which the camera goes to the gorilla, the sign language learned gorilla, and the gorilla wants to go off with its family, its new family that it's found. And while the camera's on it, you get this dramatic, sentimental family type music, sad music. And then when the camera switches back to the other direction where you see the volcano erupting and lava coming down the sides, all of a sudden it's action adventure music starts in, and it's an action adventure film. And then when the camera goes back to the gorilla again, going off with its family again, it's back to the sad, slow music, and the volcano sounds go away. And then it goes back to the direction where the volcano is, and the volcano sounds return, and the dramatic action music returns. And yeah, it does this a bunch of times in the movie, and it's like schizophrenic, can't make up its mind, even with the soundtrack. Is this a love story, a sad story, a children's gorilla thing, or is it an action adventure with a volcano erupting? And even the sound effects for the volcano, just the volcano erupting and exploding in the background, they abruptly stop too all of a sudden when the camera goes to the gorilla and the sad music plays. Then the sound effects start up again when the camera goes back the other direction again. And you're still standing in the same location the entire time. So if you think that's gripping and sentimental at the same time, then you're on some big trippy drugs. You're way out there. 1.5 stars, bad and fun to laugh at. Yes, it's fun to laugh at this. I've been laughing as we go along. 1.5 stars, 32%, a painful adaptation of a decent Michael Crichton novel. It's painful if, I guess, you read the novel and took it serious, and then you saw this, and, I'll bet Michael Crichton was offended at this. I don't know. He's not around for him to comment, but I'm betting he did comment on this, and I'll bet he's pretty ashamed of what people saw. 2.5 stars. This movie will always be compared fairly or unfairly to Jurassic Park. And of course, in that respect, it comes up way short, but it's important to remember that these are different films, with Congo trying to strike a slightly lighter tone. Of course, at points it crosses the line and comes off as a bit silly, but the movie can be fun at times, and some of the characters are interesting, especially Winston Zeddemore, Ernie Hudson. They're giving this way too much credit. I didn't even compare this to Jurassic Park. Yes, Michael Crichton wrote that book. This is more aptly compared to some kind of, I don't know, 1940s Humphrey Bogart, jungle adventure, something that's even a B movie ripoff of that, like, what is it, African Queen, a B movie of that, from that time period. It's really stupid, and Jurassic Park wouldn't even be on my mind. The theme is totally different. There's nothing about it that's similar. The only similarity is Michael Crichton's name is on both, so I totally disagree. Wouldn't even try bringing Jurassic Park up in regards to this movie. 1995's The Congo, 29% on the audience score. That's probably right, but it doesn't tell you just how funny this thing is. I highly recommend you watch this, crack a beer and watch this, and laugh out loud at how crazy, stupid, and dumb it is. It's not totally rotten if you take it as a comedy. Otherwise, it's one of the most rotten movies of the 90s. It may, in fact, I would put money that it's the worst of 1995 from a major Hollywood production. And I am going to see you again on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.